Today, I'm gonna try to survive 100 days in Scorched Earth, one of the most dangerous maps of Ark Survival Evolved. I'll have to fight against giant beasts, survive the deadly sandstorms, and tame the most insane creatures in the desert with only 3 lives. Day 1, I appeared naked in a desolate desert where either the heat or some nearby predator would surely kill me. I felt very alone, but soon I noticed that a small rock golem was following me. Apparently, this little guy was lost and trying to find his family. The little Mr. Rock and I joined forces to survive this deadly desert. The first thing that I had to do was tame a gerbil. Why? Because these little creatures have the ability to predict and warn you minutes before an electrical storm, sandstorm, or heat wave hits. So, after giving one a few good punches, I tamed it and named it Furillo. I gathered some wood and thatch by punching a palm tree, unlocked basic tools, and crafted a pickaxe. With it, I was able to mine some rocks for flint, which I used to make an axe and a campfire. Next, I needed to get hide to craft bolas. You know, those stones tied with rope that you throw at dinos to stun them. Plus, I needed some meat to cook and keep my stomach full. But there was a problem. I was literally dying of heat. The situation was getting worse, and I had no choice but to look for a water source to cool off and survive. If I wanted to live, I had to jump into the void. Fortunately, I didn't break my legs, and I even found a little Listosaurus, a defenseless lizard that would give me an easy source of hide and meat. I had landed in what seemed to be a fairly safe area to start building a camp. I killed some Lystros, gathered some berries and fiber, and crafted a bow and arrows, which would help me fend off any hungry critters that might come too close. I calmed Mr. Rock, who was nervous after the insane dive, and started mining to gather materials for a small base. I placed a thatch foundation and a storage box to free up some space in my pockets. I also decided to craft a boomerang. I didn't really know how it worked, but it looked cool. However, problems weren't far behind. A raptor was lurking nearby, ready to tear us apart. I had to take the initiative. I stunned it with bolas and killed it with arrows. As if that weren't enough, I discovered that the area was also infested with caprosuchus, alligators that can leap long distances and trap you in their jaws. But they were no match for my master archer's skills. I encountered a chubby creature that stored oil in its enormous backside. It was time to tame my first herbivore, and that turned out to be none other than, yes, a parasaur. I caught it with the bolas and discovered a new use for the boomerang. I named the parasaur Uwu. Feel free to recommend dinosaur names for future 100 days in the comments. I divided the meat in my inventory so it would spoil faster, since spoiled meat is one of the ingredients needed to craft Sweet Dreams Nesquik. I activated the parasaur's trumpet mode, which alerts you if a hostile creature is nearby, and crafted a mortar and pestle. You might ask, David, what for? Patience, young Padawan. The mortar and pestle are used to mix spoiled meat and narco berries, gathered with my goofy parasaur, to create Sweet Dreams Nesquik, a narcotic concoction capable of putting any creature to sleep. Curious onlookers began wandering into my camp, so I thought it would be a good idea to recruit a team of bodyguards to protect me from nearby dangers. First, I encountered a raptor. I quickly subdued it with my expert use of bolas and put it to sleep with a few Sweet Dreams arrows. Feeling confident, I went after a caprosuchus, and then this happened. Yes, I lost my first life to that semi-aquatic psycho-looking lizard. I had to recover my stuff and rescue Mr. Rock. To make things worse, while retrieving my belongings, a sandstorm hit the canyon out of nowhere, and that's when I realized Furillo had died at the hands of the caprosuchus. When night fell, the storm subsided, and I decided to tame the capro again. It's time from a safe position. No messing around. Once it fell at my feet, I fed it some raw meat. I also encountered a chubby cricket and put the raptor, who had woken up while I was busy not dying, back to sleep. Returning to my shabby little hut, I found some pearls, which I collected because they'd be useful later. Then I went with my raptor to tame another caprosuchus. I tested my bodyguard's team strength against the big bottom Morellatops. Mr. Rock managed to mine metal by headbutting a rock. With this, I was finally able to craft my first forge, where I could smelt raw metal to make a smithy and start crafting more advanced tools. Feeling powerful, I decided to go on an adventure. I tamed a new raptor, whom I named Terranator a few seconds later. a pack of Daeodons started chasing us. Terranator gave his life for me so I could escape. Terranator was a fleeting angel, a gift from the heavens. Rest in peace. I gathered some cactus sap, discovered plants that yielded silk, and sewed myself a beautiful outfit specialized for this extreme climate. During my explorations, I tamed more raptors and something very useful on this map: a wolf. I caught its attention with an arrow, trapped it with bolas, and checked for nearby packmates. If it had been part of a pack, I probably wouldn't be telling you this story. I named him Kratos, the brave wolf. I had plenty of soldiers now, but they were all mouths to feed in this deadly desert. I had already built a small hut, but the canyon was starting to feel too small. I wanted to explore more of the map, so I thought, what better way to do it than by air? That's how I decided to search for an Argentavis, a fat bird that is incredibly useful for transportation and exploration. Before heading out, I built a 2x2 trap near the lake using foundations, stone door frames, and ramps. This way, while I was away, any dinosaur wandering into the trap would get stuck. With Kratos by my side, I gather all the materials needed to build the bird trap. But, as always, things went sideways. My Caprosuchus, Mauricio, decided to pick a fight with another alligator, and then he disappeared. At least the other alligator got trapped. I searched everywhere for Mauricio, but I couldn't find him. So I had no choice but to channel my inner Liam Neeson from Taken. It was time to go after the Argentavis. As I made my way to the mountains, I found another little furball, which I knocked out and tamed. Its name was Furillo 2.0. I carried it on my shoulder and continued my nearly impossible mission to find that bird. When I reached the dark mountains, where these birds usually hunt for food, I entered a narrow path. I spotted several Argentavis, but there was also tons of thorny devils and other creatures that wouldn't hesitate to devour me. I had to circle the mountains to find an easier target. Once I did, I designed the perfect trap. It was made of 3 dinosaur gates and 2 doors. I got the bird's attention, let it chase me into the trap, played a little game of tag around it, and I finally managed to close the back door, locking it in. It didn't take long to knock it out and tame it. Now, I just had to escort it back to camp without letting anything or anyone harm it. And to my surprise, Mauricio had returned. I let the Argentavis rest while I went off to hunt some chubby crickets to collect chitin and create a saddle for the bird. At first, the crickets kept escaping, but after some practice, I became an expert cricket hunter. Once I had enough materials, I crafted the saddle, gave Mr. Rock an anti-nausea pill, and we took off flying on Munyanin. That's why I named the bird. The new mission was to find Crystal, so I could craft Pokeballs to store my dinos, a spyglass, and a sandstorm helmet with goggles. But suddenly, Furillo began to alert me of something. We had to cancel the flight, and sure enough, a thunderstorm hit shortly after. But hey, if you're afraid of dying, don't be born, right? I mounted Munyanin and flew off, carrying Mr. Rock as my personal satellite dish. The sky went completely dark. It felt like I was inside an episode of Stranger Things. And then, the storm brought a Titanosaur, one of the largest and strongest dinosaurs to ever walk the earth. Nearby, I also spotted a Thylacoleo, a giant cat with the ability to climb walls like a Spider-Man himself. I marked his location and continued toward the mountains, where Crystal was my top priority. We had to fight off other Argentavis who didn't want us taking their Crystal. A saber-toothed tiger also tried to slow us down, but I tamed it with my cat whisperer skills. Finally, we mined enough Crystal to craft Pokeballs, store the saber-tooth in one, and return to our shabby little hut. Now we could safely move through the skies. But I felt like I needed some good ground transport. And what could be better than a kangaroo with thick legs that could hop everywhere? With my new spyglass, I tried to find one of good quality, and when I found it, I started stalking it. To catch it, I used a 4-sign trap. Utilizing my insane Fortnite building skills, I managed to trap it with 100% success, and I could shoot it to sedate it and then feed it rare mushroom, which, luckily, we had obtained by mining crystal in the mountains. The name for the kangaroo was Raulinho. I was about to head back to the mountains for some more powerful creatures when Furillo alerted me about something. It was a sandstorm. In case I haven't said it before, sandstorms drain your stamina little by little, leaving you completely vulnerable to any danger, and sand pockets even get in your way, increasing your weight and slowing you down. When the storm ceased, we set course for the mountains. There we spotted a Uranus and some rock golems. The area was full of these rock creatures. likely including Mr. Rox's parents. Although we had come to tame, that's exactly what we did. We tried to capture a male and female Carnotaurus. It nearly broke my leg, and I had to waste a ton of arrows, and my crossbow broke, but I managed to tame one. Shortly after, I was heading back home with 2 new insane creatures to protect me. At one point in survival, it became necessary to start upgrading my tools. It was time to enter the Metal Age, and the first step in this metallurgical transition was to find a dinosaur that could farm large amounts of raw iron, an Ankylosaurus. Luckily, there were tons of these spiky friends around our humble camp, so it wasn't hard to get one. I loaded the Ankylo with Munyanin into our impenetrable trap, saved it from certain death at the hands of my Caprosuchus, and sedated it with Nesquik's Sweet Dream arrows. But I didn't want it to feel lonely, so I brought an Ankylo female, which I knocked out with some boomerang hits. Now I had workers for me, little slaves to handle simple tasks while I took care of the extreme stuff. Extreme stuff like hunting for a Thylacoleo and a Spinosaurus. Before heading out on this adventure, many of you suggested I put a helmet on Furillo, and I listened. It honestly looked pretty cool on him. We were no longer David and Furillo, we had become the Insane Bikers. I took the opportunity to craft Raulinho's saddle and train him to kick anyone who got near the hut. I set up the trap for the feline and headed to the coordinates where we had seen it the other day. It wasn't the most insane cat in the desert, but it was decent. Now, time to prepare the ambush. It didn't take me long to build the trap and to get his attention, though the feline was smarter than expected. It wasn't too difficult to trap it. I checked the surroundings to make sure there was nothing that could kill me and started shooting it in the snout. The taming was pretty quick, and since there were lots of Spinosaurus in the area, I thought I'd use the trap to tame one of them. It's a pretty useful creature as it serves as a portable forge, but it also shoots spice when in the wild, which can knock you out cold. I got a bit carried away and ended up trapping an anteater and a killer bird, but it didn't take long for me to mess it up. Luckily, I managed to knock out the bird before it ate my Megatherium, but by attacking it, it reduced the taming effectiveness. I returned to the canyon, tried out my new tiger, which we named Tonio. He would play a significant role in the outcome of our adventure. I put the Ankylosaurus and Carnotaurus to mate, while Furillo and I went on a nighttime party. It was a good night. We laughed like never before, tamed a fat butterfly with a funny face, which we named Marimar, and was very good at carrying things in the air. However, while taming more wolves for our pack, things got complicated. We came close to losing our second life. Honestly, it was a real screw-up since it was a level 100 wolf, but Raulinho had to take it out with kicks. When we got home, we saw the babies of the Ankylosaurus being born, and at the same time, we saw them die. They died from starvation. It was a tough blow, and we decided to give them a good tribute. The Insane Bikers promised to avenge their death in one of the most epic and crazy ways possible. We were going to steal dragon eggs from a lava-filled crack full of wyverns of all types. We needed a flyer that wasn't Munyanin, which would serve as our mount to try and steal the little dragons and escape unscathed from their claws. And when you steal an egg from their nest, all nearby dragons come to try and get it back. I decided to try and get a higher level Argentavis that was also male. That way, it could mate with Munyanin and produce offspring as a backup in case we lost both birds. But the real question was, could this bird escape from dragons? Well, we were going to find out. I let the birds mate to get eggs with insane little offspring and went to the crack, where I ended up finding a lightning dragon egg. I wasn't brave enough to take it, but someone from the chat said the only thing needed to make any man do the unthinkable, whatever the consequences. Indeed, I am that fool who does anything crazy when that phrase is said. I grabbed the egg and fled, but the dragons noticed and started chasing me. A lightning dragon tried to zap me, and I tried to get off the Argentavis to run, but it didn't go as planned. And that's how I lost my second life, and also how Furillo 2.0 died. At that moment, I remembered something Furillo once told me. Or what it translates to, with great power comes great responsibility. So I gathered my courage and did what Furillo would have wanted us to do. We were going to recover our things and the dragon egg. This had just turned into Ark one life. When we reached the mountains, I saw the Argentavis still alive, fighting a saber-tooth. In that moment, I understood. I had to use the other bird as bait. It was the only way to get out alive with the egg in our hands. I collected my belongings along with the egg, and the dragons realized the trick. I sent my Argentavis to its death, buying me enough time to escape with Munyanin, and surprisingly, I made it. When I got home, the universe rewarded us with the birth of 2 baby Carnotaurus. I went out in search of a new gerbil to replace the best weatherman. The name for the new gerbil was Jambo. He was a bit of a clown, but I didn't dislike him too much. Together, we spotted a Rex, got polymer by killing Mantis to make a Pokeball gun, and went to rest to tame the next day. Jambo and I had a big argument that night, and I went to say a few final words to Farillo at the light of dawn. That same day, I came up with the idea to create a renewable energy source to power some air conditioners to open the Dragon Egg, while I thought about building the strongest Rex army ever seen. By the way, I also put some drawings in the cupboards to distinguish what I kept in each. I needed to make a windmill to convert the kinetic energy of its blade's movement into energy for the air conditioners. But for that, I needed gasoline as fuel for the portable factory on the roof of my house where all these materials were built. Jambo and I made peace, left oil and skin in the forge to convert them into gasoline, and went for the Rexes we had spotted the night before. I grabbed some Nesquik Straight Dreams darts, the upgraded version of the arrows that require a long cannon rifle to shoot. I put Mr. Roca to work, sewing shoes to sell them at a high price, and traveled to the dunes, where I tried to attract a male Rex of level 40-something. He got stuck because of his huge ass, which made it much easier to knock him out and feed him without losing my hand. I kept him in my Pokeball gun, and once back home, I set up the spinning cheetah windmill. The problem? It hardly spun. I built an air conditioning system connected to the windmill and realized that all my work had been for nothing, since there was not enough wind to move the blades. Even Mr. Roca didn't know what to do. What occurred to me was that finding a new area with more wind, and I found it in a kind of oasis by the dunes where the wind was always stronger. There, I placed the windmill and some air conditioners, put the Dragon Egg in the middle, and in a few minutes, the shell opened. We had a new creature, one of the most powerful in the desert. Mr. Roca took care of penning it while I fitted its stomach. In a few days, the creature would be a giant flying lizard with which we could steal more eggs. And you might ask, David, why do you want more eggs if you already have a dragon? It turns out that in this map, where the sun shines stronger than usual, a fiery bird appears in the sky. It's the Phoenix, and the only way to tame it is by spitting fire, either with flamethrowers, incendiary arrows, or with a fire dragon. The dragon was already an adult, which means we could ride it and also spit lightning like a schizophrenic with a taser. The first mission of the day was to find a female Rex to pair our Rex and start building the army, if you know what I mean. Even though it tried to get rid of the darts by scratching itself against a rock, the insanity inside me won the battle, and I managed to knock it out. But the army needed more power, so it was time to tame a Uranus, which would serve as my mount in the battle against the Manticore, and a fat pig to accompany the Rexes, acting as a medic, healing passively. I built the same trap as before and tried to lure a furry lizard with Munyanin. But when it roared, the bird lost its mind and started acting like a fly that had drunk 3 drops of supermarket cheap wine. So, I decided to take the risk and do the taming on foot. I got quite scared, but the Uranus stepped into the trap cleanly. I managed to knock it out without complications and returned to my shack to spend the night. When I got home, I saw that the windmill was working, and I wanted to smash it in half by throwing Mr. Roca at it with his big head, but I held back. The next morning, I traveled to the dunes to find a pig. I built a trap, zapped a scorpion with a taser, and decided to tame it and trap it with the pig so it could knock out its stinger. We now had everything we needed to prepare our army, and when I was about to go out for more eggs for the wyvern crack, a sandstorm hit, and we had to abort the mission. I spent a few days preparing the Rexes, along with General Mr. Roca. We now had real soldiers. Before going for the Manticore, I decided it was a good time to steal more Dragon Eggs. Flying through the hot crack, I found a fire egg, set down my thunderous, fat-ass dragon, and became Arsène Lupin, the gentleman thief. I had understood that I had no rival when it came to speed. Not even the great Lightning McQueen could catch me. So I stole a poison egg, another fire egg, and another storm egg. A bunch of dragons tried to follow us, but none could reach the speed of thunder. I put all the eggs in the air conditioners in the oasis, watched them hatch, and rescue one that had gotten stuck in one of the fans. Oh, poor little baby. It was time to go after the Gemma Manicore. Once in the sand, we waited for the cowardly Manicore to come down to the ground, and we performed the balloon technique, which allowed us to defeat it with almost losing any health. They even gave us an iPad as a gift. We returned safe and sound, but when we got home, we encountered a problem. Mr. Rox's parents had left a warning. Either we'll return their son, or they will destroy our shack. And since I had recently discovered that both the father and the mother were criminals wanted by Interpol, I firmly refused to hand Mr. Rock over to them. I built a truly insane trap to catch these clowns. First, it was the father. I skillfully slipped between his rocky legs and placed a door frame, trapping him completely. It only took a few cannon shots to the head to put him to sleep and then tame him. The mother, on the other hand, tried to trick me. I was able to trap her easily, but at one point she froze as if something had happened. She then turned into a rock, motionless, impassive, and then, suddenly, although she couldn't resist my cannon shots to her head, everything went well. But schizophrenia made her hear voices. Voices telling me to pit Miss Rox's mother against the death worm, and that's exactly what I did. The criminal fought bravely, but in the end, she was torn to pieces. At least I was able to tame a dung beetle. I've always dreamed of running a circus with these creatures. I left Mr. Rox's father at home making shoes and decided that today would be the day we would tame the phoenix. First, I tamed a Morellatops. I also tamed a dung beetle, which is very efficient for gathering and transporting materials like stone. And I was able to get a vulture, which is essential if you want to get huge piles of rotten meat. The heat wave arrived, and since my fire dragon had already grown, we went looking for the phoenix. It took us a while because it can spawn anywhere on the map. We began one of the strangest tames I've ever done. I had to scorch it with my wyvern's breath. This was pretty complicated because the dragon isn't very agile, and the bird was very small compared to us. After a few breaths, the phoenix became my inseparable friend. A bird that never touched the ground, capable of packing, scratching, and throwing fireballs, and that's not all. It also served as a portable kitchen. To test it, the chat decided I should kill Jambo, although karma almost took action and ended our last life. But we were too insane to die like that. Jambo ended up dying after terrible suffering without being sedated. And then came the final battle. We had to defeat the Beta Manticore and the Alpha. Before heading into battle, I said my goodbyes to all my dinos and realized how alone I had become without Jambo. We were no longer the insane bikers. It was just the insane. I won't lie to you. The battle against the Beta Manticore was easy. The most interesting part was that it fell asleep in the middle of the battle. But for the Alpha, things were different. We had to make a sacrifice in the stadium where, thousands of years ago, they chained the Manicore to display to the public and devour the heretics. Fate decided that the sacrifice would be Tonio. I had freed him and scorched him with the dragon, so that afterwards some filthy vultures would eat him. It was time to find out if the sacrifice had worked. The final battle had begun. I took a few photos with the Manticore and transcended the Ark, merging with Furillo and with the universe.